I'm letting y'all know now this video is rated TV-MALS and contains strong language and is intended for mature audiences.
People keep asking me how I do it. You know what? I used to tell them, if I like you, want you, I got to have it. We can do it the easy way or the hard way. And you watching the heart of the city. And I'm going to get this little red boy. And when I do, I'm going to eat that little yellow booty like a bacon double cheeseburger from McDonald's.
This is a tasty burger.
Alright, you kids get to bed, I get the storybook.
Fleece the Booty Bully goes back to prison on purpose. Fleece Johnson didn't survive 40 years in the Kentucky Department of Corrections by being normal. Normal men got pulled out, broken to pieces, or forgotten. Fleece survived by being a force of nature, a flamboyant, unpredictable, and strangely charismatic anomaly who treated the penitentiary not as a cage, but as his personal, albeit heavily guarded kingdom. Sentenced in 1977 to 12 years for a string of elaborate, non-violent burglaries, Fleece should have been a free man by 1989. Instead, through a bizarre alchemy of misunderstood gestures, retaliatory stabbings, and becoming a booty bully, or what he euphemistically referred to on his YouTube channel as unconsensual homosexual incidents of a survivalist nature, his sentence stretched and stretched. By the time the gates finally opened for him, Fleece had served 4 decades straight. He walked out with a $20 gate check, a profound misunderstanding of modern technology, and a head full of rainbow-ass stories that the internet was absolutely starving for. He didn't go to a halfway house. He went straight to his old hometown of Louisville and moved in with his youngest sister and bought a big screen Android phone from Walmart. Within 6 years, Fleece's gay cell block secrets gave his interviewers hundreds of thousands of subscribers. He wore tracksuits and spoke in a thick, melodious Kentucky drawl and recounted tales of prison life with the dramatic flair of an Atlanta comedian. He was a viral sensation. He was a brand. He was, in his own mind, a survivor who had conquered the system, but Fleece was also profoundly, dangerously lonely. And he was about to make the most catastrophic, delusional decision of his 68 years on Earth. In July 2026, the apartment in Louisville smelled faintly of off-brand menthol cigarettes and cheap Dollar Tree cologne. A neon sign buzzed in the corner of his living room, spelling out the words "Booty Bully #1" in hot pink. Fleece sat in his black and neon green GT racing gaming chair, adjusting the collar of his silk leopard print robe. On the dual monitors before him, his YouTube analytics glowed green. Subscribers were up. Watch time was up. But Fleece wasn't looking at the numbers tonight. He was watching a live true crime commentary stream on a secondary monitor. The chat was flying by at a dizzying speed, a blur of emojis and morbid curiosity. The streamer, a young man with a microphone too close to his mouth, was dissecting the sentencing hearing of Sean Gathright, the 20-year-old Florida man convicted in the high-profile murder of rapper Julio Fulio. Fleece didn't care about the silly YN rap beef. He didn't care about the gang politics of Jacksonville, Florida. All he cared about was the super sexy-ass defendant. The stream cut to courtroom footage. There he was, Sean Gathright, 20 years old, slumped in an oversized, ill-fitting suit. His head was bowed, his dark hair falling over his eyes. He looked small. He looked lost. He looked to Fleece's heavily romanticized, deeply warped perception like a lost little red-boned princess who had wandered into the wolf's den and desperately needed a war daddy to save him. "Look at them pretty eyes," Fleece whispered to his empty apartment, his heart doing a strange, fluttering gallop. "Just a baby. Them niggas down there gonna eat him alive in there." The streamer droned on about mandatory minimums in the Florida penal system. Fleece tuned him out. His mind was racing, connecting dots that didn't exist. He didn't know shit about the Florida prison system. He'd only done time in Kentucky, but if you seen one prison, you seen them all, and a pretty young, high-profile inmate like Sean would be a target. He would be pressured. He would be broken. He was just too damn pretty, and his skin was flawless. He would be shark food unless he had protection, unless he had a husband in there to protect him. Fleece leaned into his microphone, forgetting for a second he wasn't live. I could teach him about prison if I was in there with him, he muttered. I could show him what to do and what not to do, how to not get tricked out of zooms and whams, how to open up them lil yellow cheeks and let me. A wild, terrifying idea blossomed in his mind. It was absurd. It was insane. It was perfect. He had spent 6 years building a life on the outside. He had a 401k thanks to a bizarre prison restitution settlement, a verified Insta, P account, and a Patreon with 3 tiers of membership. But none of it mattered. The outside world was cold, confusing, and slimy. But in prison, Fleece was a motherfucking legend. And if he went back, he wouldn't be going back as an inmate. He'd be going back as the booty god himself. I'm coming to get your Mella Yella. Fleece whispered to himself, a tear of genuine delusional affection rolling down his wrinkled facial cheeks. Daddy's coming to get you, and I can't wait to squeeze up in your. Fleece's crash out plan required precision. He couldn't just walk into a police station and confess to a crime he didn't commit. The courts were too overworked down there in Florida, and a competent public defender would likely get him probation or a diversion program for an elderly offender. No, he needed to commit a crime that carried mandatory weight, but was nonviolent enough that he wouldn't be classified as a dangerous predator. He finally decided what he was going to do to get into that Florida prison system with his new crush. All this spring and summer, he had been hearing some stupid rap song by some bitch named Young Mississippi or something like that. The song was called Spin Dat, and it was bumping from car trunks and clubs and bars everywhere. Fleece decided to implement what the rapper bitch was rapping about to get back into prison. Boosting merchandise out of stores with a retail value over $500, which would be considered a felony. Fleece spent 3 days planning this stupid play in his baby sister's spare bedroom. He packed a single duffel bag, 3 changes of clothes, a bottle of prescription blood pressure medication, and a printed out stack of his YouTube analytics to prove his community standing. He rented a cherry red Cadillac Escalade and began the 14-hour drive down I-75 to Tampa, Florida. He arrived on a Tuesday morning. The sun was blinding. The humidity was like King Kong's big-ass hand squashing humans below. Fleece checked into a local Red Roof Inn, took a nap, and at 2 p.m., he drove to a high-end boutique in a sprawling outdoor shopping plaza. The store was called Laura. It sold designer sunglasses, belts, and handbags. It was perfect. The old shit-talking country boy walked in, adjusting his leopard print robe over a bright yellow tracksuit. He looked, to put it mildly, like a man who had taken a wrong turn on the way to a 1970s disco. The lone sales associate, a young white girl named Chloe, eyed him with a mixture of pity and suspicion. "Can I help you find something, sir?" she asked, keeping a careful distance. "Just browsing, sweetheart," Fleece said, his Kentucky drawl thick as molasses. "Admiring yo sto." He wandered toward a display of designer Goyard tote bags. He picked up a black leather purse with a silver buckle priced at $5,000. He looked at the security camera in the corner. He made direct eye contact with the lens. Then, with the grace of a man who had spent 40 years avoiding prison guards, he deliberately, slowly, tucked the goey purse into the deep pocket of his robe. He didn't sneak. He didn't rush. He walked toward the exit, the purse clearly bulging against his hip. "Sir!" Chloe called out, her voice trembling slightly. "Sir, you need to pay for that." Fleece stopped. He turned around, an evil smile on his face. "I don't know what the fuck you talk about, young lady." Chloe hit the silent alarm. Within 3 minutes, 2 uniformed store security guards and Tampa Police PD arrived. Fleece didn't resist. He didn't run. When the officer asked him to empty his pockets, Fleece complied with a theatrical sigh. "Is this a felony, officer?" Fleece asked, his eyes shining with hope. "Because I have a history, a long, long history. I'm a danger to retail establishments everywhere." The officer, a weary Navy veteran named Miller, looked at the 68-year-old man in a leopard robe. Sir, it's felony grand theft due to the amount on the price tag, but given your age and the fact that you just stood here waiting for us, the DA is probably going to offer you a plea. Maybe probation. Fleece's heart sank. Probation? Oh, hell nah. He was trying to get into the Florida prison system to get to his sweet cheeks, and wasn't shit gonna stop him now. Officer, Fleece said, leaning in conspiratorially before punching the porky cop square in his left eye, dropping the 5'7", 306-pound man like a young Mike Tyson. Officer Miller lay on the ground dazed as the security guards tackled Fleece to the ground and handcuffed him. 92 days later, the Hillsborough County courtroom was stiflingly hot. Fleece sat at the defense table wearing a borrowed, ill-fitting Navy suit that made him look like a child playing dress-up. His court-appointed attorney, a Weasley-looking young man named Caleb, was sweating through his shirt. Mr. Johnson, the fresh attorney whispered, the state is offering you 18 months of probation, a $1,000 fine, and 100 hours of community service. You just have to plead guilty to misdemeanor theft. They're dropping a felony charge because you're elderly and have no prior Florida record. Fleece stared at him in horror. Probation! Cracker! Are you playing with me? I need to go to prison. Caleb stared at him. Excuse me? Prison, dummy. The big house, the slammer. I have a spiritual calling to be incarcerated. I'm a reformed man, but the walls call to me. The judge, an elderly woman with glasses perched on the end of her nose, banged her gavel. Mr. Johnson, please approach the bench with your counsel. Fleece shuffled forward. Mr. Johnson, the judge said, peering at him. Your attorney tells me you are rejecting a very generous plea offer. You understand that if we proceed to trial and you are convicted of the felony charge, you are looking at up to 5 years in the Florida Department of Corrections. Fleece's eyes lit up. 5 years. That was plenty of time to woo Sean, establish their bond, and be able to make love to that sweet young hole before his inevitable parole. Your Majesty, Your Honor, Fleece said, his voice booming with theatrical sincerity. I'm a menace to society. I cannot be trusted in society right now. I beg of you, send me to the state penitentiary. It is the only place I can be rehabilitated. The judge sighed, rubbing her temples. Mr. Johnson, the court does not grant incarceration requests based on the defendant's desire for prison. However, given your blatant disregard for the law and your bizarre behavior today, I am inclined to accept the state's fallback offer. She looked at the prosecutor. 2 years in the Department of Corrections with credit for time served in the county jail, followed by 3 years of probation. Fleece wanted to cheer. He wanted to do a backflip. 2 years. It was perfect. Thank you, Your Honor, Fleece shouted, bowing deeply. You won't regret this. I'm gonna be the best inmate you ever had. The judge banged the gavel. Take him away. As the 6'6" red-headed bailiff led him out in handcuffs, Fleece smiled. Step 1 was complete. Now he just had to make sure he was going to the right prison. The Hillsborough County Jail was a nightmare of noise, concrete, and bad food. Fleece hated it immediately. It wasn't the majestic, structured environment of his Kentucky memories. It was chaotic and loud. But Fleece had a weapon the average inmate didn't. A smartphone, which he had bribed a sympathetic trustee to smuggle in for him, along with a portable charger and 450,000 YouTube subscribers. From his bunk, huddled under a blanket, Fleece recorded a video. He held the phone close, his face illuminated by the screen's glow, tears welling in his eyes. My Fleece family, he whispered, his voice trembling with manufactured emotion. I'm in a dark place. I made a mistake. I'm in a Florida county jail and I'm terrified. But my spirit is calling me to a higher purpose. There is a young man, a lost soul, incarcerated central in the Gulf Correctional Institution in Panama City. I feel a divine duty to go there, to document the realities of the Florida prison system, and to bring reform to light. But I need your help. I need you to contact Senator Vance. Tell him Fleece needs to be at Gulf Correctional Institution for his prison reform documentary project. Please, my family, save me. He posted the video. Within 24 hours, it had 200,000 views. The comment section was a mix of genuine concern, utter confusion, and trolls spamming free Fleece. But Fleece didn't just rely on his subscribers. He had a manager back in Kentucky, a shady, fast-talking former inmate named Darnell who handled Fleece's merch and Patreon. Fleece had Darnell use a portion of the channel's profits to hire a local Florida lobbyist. The lobbyist, a slick man named Harold, was baffled but intrigued by the money. "So let me get this straight," the creepy midget said over a crackling prison phone call. "You want me to lobby a state senator to transfer a 68-year-old convicted shoplifter from a county jail to a specific state prison facility so you can make a YouTube documentary?" "Not just a documentary," Fleece corrected, his voice dropping to a serious conspiratorial whisper. "A movement. Senator Vance needs this. It's a photo op. Compassionate Senator helps elderly YouTuber expose prison conditions. It's gold, Harold. Gold." The slickster sighed. He didn't believe a word of it, but the retainer fee was already in his account. 2 weeks later, through a bizarre confluence of bureaucratic incompetence, a clerical error, and a state senator's aide who thought Fleece was a legitimate grassroots prison reform advocate, the impossible happened. Fleece's transfer paperwork was stamped, signed, and approved. He was being moved to the Gulf Correctional Facility, the very same prison where Sean Gathright was currently housed. On the day of the transfer, Fleece stood in the sally port, his hands cuffed, a duffel bag at his feet. The transport van doors opened. The Florida sun beat down on him. He wasn't afraid. He wasn't anxious. He was a man on a mission. "All right, Sean," Fleece whispered to the sky, a terrifyingly genuine smile spreading across his face. "Daddy's home." Gulf Correctional Facility wasn't like the Kentucky prisons Fleece remembered. Those had been brick and mortar, steeped in a certain grim tradition. This place was all sterile concrete and fluorescent lights, a modern monument to human containment that smelled of industrial cleaner and despair. Fleece stepped off the transport van looking around. "Name?" the processing officer asked, not looking up from his clipboard. "Fleece Johnson, but the streets call me the Booty Warrior or Booty Bully." The officer sighed. "Strip, squat, and cough, inmate." Fleece complied with theatrical flair, narrating the process. "Now, this is what they call dignity, folks. The great equalizer. Everyone looks the same when they're naked and cold." He was assigned to Dorm C-12, a 60-man unit that buzzed with the low hum of conversations, the clank of metal on metal, and the ever-present tension of men forced into close quarters. As he walked in carrying his state-issued bedding, the dorm went quiet for a moment, then erupted in laughter. "Yo, what is this?" a YN called out. "Did the circus get lost on the way to Orlando? Ain't that the old nigga from YouTube that be talking about all that gay shit?" "Oh man, you sure you ain't in the wrong dorm? The retirement home is 3 exits down." Fleece set his mattress down on an empty bunk with deliberate dignity. "Laugh all you want, young niggas, but remember, it's not the clothes that make the man. It's the man that makes the clothes legendary. One day you'll understand." He spent the next 3 days trying to establish his presence. He introduced himself to everyone, offering firm handshakes and saying, "I'm Fleece. I'm here to document the human condition and maybe help a lost soul or two." Most inmates just nodded and walked away. A few asked if he had any soups or a cup of coffee. The problem was Fleece's legend didn't translate in sunny Florida like it did in Kentucky. Out there, he'd been a fixture for 40 years. Everyone knew his story, his survival tactics, his ability to navigate the prison's jungles. Here, he was just a crazy old man who talked too much. "You ain't shit, Fleece," a 5'10" muscular blood named Rico told him bluntly on the 4th day. "You just an old fool who got locked up for stealing a purse. Sit down, be quiet, 'fore you get ate in this bitch." Fleece's heart sank, but only for a moment. He knew what he needed. He needed to find Sean. Once he found Sean, everything would make sense. Sean would recognize him for who he truly was, a protector, a fair war daddy, a husband in the making. It finally happened on a Thursday during rec on a big yard. Fleece had been scanning the crowds for days, asking subtle questions.
"Hey, bruh, you seen the little light-skinned nigga that killed that rapper, Julio?"
You better quit staring at all this juiciness and smash them like and subscribe buttons. A bitch picky and I got options.
Most inmates just shrugged or laughed, but finally someone told him he was in a dorm on the other side of the prison, so the only way to see him was when the officers called Big Yard and let all of the dorms out at one time. When Fleece laid eyes on the prettiest man on planet Earth, his old heart damn near stopped, and without popping a blue chew pill, his old pipe bulged against his blue trousers as he got an instant erection. There he was, Sean Gathright, standing with a group of his fellow YNs looking like a light-skinned swimsuit model without the two-piece. His blue state uniform hung loosely on his sexy, slender frame, but Fleece's old eyes tutting in the X-ray binoculars that allowed him to see through Sean's clothes. He looked exactly as he had in the courtroom footage, young, sexy, educated, and carrying a weight that seemed too heavy for his shoulders. Fleece felt a wave of emotion so intense it nearly knocked him over. This was it. This was why he come in here. Why he left his apartment, his YouTube channel, his freedom. This pretty-ass boy needed a husband. Fleece felt that he was divinely appointed to the task. He watched from across the yard, memorizing every detail. The way Sean moved, the way he occasionally talked with his hands, the way he seemed to exist in his own world, separate from the 8 niggas around him. He perfect, Fleece whispered to himself. Who's perfect? Rico asked, appearing at his elbow with a suspicious grin. You ain't thinking what I think you're thinking, old man? I'm thinking about making that boy over there my little bitch, the one killed Julio. Rico snorted. Nigga, you tripping. Gathright don't even get down like that. That little nigga got hands too. I seen him fight one of them Crip niggas. Nigga, I did 40 years. I don't care about that. For the next few weeks, the old bandit begged his counselor to put him in Sean's dorm, but there were no empty beds, so the best she did was get him moved over on that side of the prison. After the move, Fleece watched the young boy like a horny, hungry gay wolf. He learned Sean's routine. Sean woke early, ate breakfast with a few niggas that looked like gangbangers, and spent time doing YN shit like shooting dice and rapping in small groups. He never raised his voice, never got into arguments, never participated in the dorm's various schemes and hustles, but he kept hanging around the one group of dudes. He was an island, and Fleece was determined to build a bridge. Fleece's first attempt at shooting his shot was subtle, or at least he thought it was. During chow call on a Thursday, Fleece spotted Sean finally sitting alone at a table near the back. He got his tray with the usual slop, mystery meat, gray beans, and something that might have been cornbread, and made his way over. Mind if I join you, young man? Fleece asked, already sitting down. Sean looked up, startled. His eyes were dark and guarded. Sure, whatever. Fleece sat down and immediately pushed his dessert. A small cookie across the table. Here, you look like you could use a little sweetness in your life. Sean stared at the cookie like it might be poison. I'm good, man. Boy, you look 120 pounds soaking wet. You better take this cookie. I don't eat sugar anyway. Bad for the diabetes. You young, you need to get a little thicker. I said I'm good, unk. Fleece's smile didn't falter. Tomorrow then, I'll bring you something else. He spent the next day preparing, using stow items. Fleece crafted what he called a prison care package. He used soups, a bag of chips, and a honey bun. He presented it to Sean the next day at lunch, along with the cake off his tray. Here goes some extra food in case you get hungry later on. Why are you doing this? Because someone has to look out for you, Fleece said earnestly. This place, it eats young niggas alive. Chews them up and spits them out. But you got potential. I can see it. I don't need a babysitter, Sean said quietly. But he didn't push the zoom-zooms and wham-whams away either. The group of guys he hung with in the dorm kept asking for his commissary and cleaned him out until next stow day. Everybody needs somebody, young king. That's just the truth of it. Over the next week, Fleece escalated his efforts. He tried to teach Sean how to make a prison pocket out of a ramen packet and plastic from a commissary bag. He attempted to show him the best way to hide contraband in a cell, though Sean had no interest in contraband. He declared his protective intentions to Gathright one day as they walked to breakfast, saying, "Anybody messes with my boy Sean, they gotta go through me first." This last one earned him a deep flush of embarrassment from Sean. "Please stop doing that," Sean muttered that evening as they sat at dinner. "Doing what?" "Calling me your boy, telling people you're protecting me. I don't need protection." Fleece's face softened with what he thought was understanding. "I know you think you don't, but trust me, I did 40 years. I know things. I can teach you how to survive." "I'm doing life," Sean said flatly. "I don't need to survive. I just need to exist." The words hit Fleece like a punch to the gut, but he misinterpreted them entirely. He thought Sean was testing him, seeing if he was serious about his commitment. "Don't you worry," Fleece said, nodding sagely. "I'm not going anywhere. I'm in this for the long haul." Sean just shook his head and got up and left the chow hall. Then, 3 days later, Fleece got the best news of his life, besides being told he was getting out after doing those 40 years in Kentucky, and that was that an open bed became available in Sean's dorm, and Fleece had to be the luckiest son of a bitch alive because the open bed was in Sean's room. Fleece almost had a heart attack when he waltzed in the cell and saw Sean laying on his stomach sleeping with his pretty little ass tooted out in the air. The old freaky geezer tried to contain his composure, but lost all control and immediately closed their cell's door as quietly as he could and started taking his clothes off, boxers, and even socks, revealing crusty, ashy foot fungus-stricken toenails. Before a napping Sean, who was slowly waking up, could rise all the way up off his bottom bunk, freaky Fleece, with his dick in his hand, hop on back of the young boy and put him in a police-style chokehold with one arm while using the other to pull Sean's state-issued boxer shorts down, licking the back of the young boy's neck in the process. "I drank your toilet water, you so fine, boy. The next time you take a shit, don't flush the toilet. I want to dip my mug in there and drink some of that poop water." The old bastard was strong enough to get the YN's boxers down to his ankles, but before he could slide his shriveled snake up in Sean's virgin booty, the young boy shot him an elbow to his left temple that rocked him enough for Sean to push him up off of him and start pummeling the old man with a barrage of punches before yelling out the word "Sue-woo" to signal his fellow Bloods gang bros in the dorm. What the booty bully didn't know was that the group of YNs Sean had been hanging out with were Bloods, and they had recently brought him home or enlisted him into their set, saying he had an elbow or life sentence to do and would need protection against all of the niggas that supported Julio Fulio. Sean agreed and finally got beat into the gang, which is why he had a healing left black eye and cuts on his hand. The Bloods were deep in the dorm, so about 14 or 15 of them piled into their new brother's cell to see what was going on. When Sean, who started using the name Red Rum because it spelled the word murder backwards and was why he was in prison, told his Blood bros what happened, a few of them started stomping Fleece in the body and face until their OG, a short but wide-bodied 37-year-old, stopped them and ordered one of them to tie the old fuck nigga up with strips of bedsheet. After Sean spit in Fleece's battered, bloody face and slapped him as hard as he could, his bros shoved him up under Sean's bed, and the Bloods kept Fleece there for the next 3 days, which unluckily for him, it was a 3 days weekend due to President's Day, a holiday that coming Monday. They kept the old punk alive by feeding him the collard greens and beans off of their dinner trays and making him drink toilet water, which he said he would have done anyway, so that wasn't that bad for him. The Blood Gang torture team worked on old Fleece so much, even doing some evil folk stuff by cutting off his old chest nipples with nail clippers, that he had to go to a free world hospital that Tuesday after they finally untied him and threw his ass up by the dorm entrance doors so the officers could see him. He recovered and was transferred to the medical prison in Lake Butler, where he finished the rest of his sentence and chalked the whole experience off as being an old fool.
Fleece Johnson is a booty copy. Ask Gwen. Explain.